Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETUlay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETUlay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICT's Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del P. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETUlay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Welcome back po to Tuesdays with Tutor Tiny. My apologies for the interruptions. We are having technical difficulty as of the moment. Moreover, we are back on track. And thank you so much for tuning in and staying online. So we are, I would like to repeat on the second to the last literary period of the North American literature, that is on the Beat generation. Now, what is unique in this particular literary period is that the emergence of confessional literature. When we talk about confessional literature, parents, teachers, and learners, this is about a literary genre that expresses an autobiographical confession on one's inner or darker motivation. This is also a form of confession to a scene in an expression used by prose and poetry. Now, confessional writing has become popular, and it has already influenced the rest of the world. In fact, we have William S. Burroughs and his contemporary Henry Miller, Allen Ginsberg, and John Berryman. They already influence Asian writers and authors on this type of literature, the confessional literature. To mention, we have B.P. Husmilio and his Explicit Hearts, explicitly alluding Jen Berryman and his literary piece. So we're down to the last literary period of Northern America. That's going to be after World War II, with the emergence of all types of genres known to us already, which is poetry and novel, fiction, drama, etc. In addition to the genre, we have here a unique one, which is called metafiction. It is actually defined as beyond fiction, because this type of genre gives us the idea on the deepness and more connection or more emphasis on the fictional side of a story, of a literary piece. Another genre that emerged in this particular era is we have absurd, autobiographical, feminism, fiction writing, at the same time dark satire. As you already know, satire is a form of humorous presentation to provide criticism on an ill a practice in an institution, a government, or a society. Then to mention on a notable author for this particular period, which is contemporary and of present, we have Kurt Vonnegut. He is actually a widely read author. One example of his literary novel is entitled Slaughterhouse-Five. I would also like to share to you the ghostwriter, Philip Roth. This is detailing the account of a politician, okay, by hiring a ghost writer. It's an interesting reading, and I would like to share and encourage our viewers, teachers, listeners, and parents to read American literature, particularly in North America. Okay, so to mention on the characteristics of the 21st century North American literature, I hope you were able to appreciate how um, the collection of the different genres, literatures, and subjects of North America come into because of the different experiences that the country has had. So we have here inventive, nonconformist to the style and traditions. It is rich on allusion to historical past, especially on the Beat generation and especially on the modern literary period. We also have free verse, free form, and of course on the Beat, particularly on the Beat period, it's explicit. So with that, let me move on to share to you a literary piece written by Margaret Atwood. She is actually from Ottawa, Ontario, born in 1939. She is a prolific writer in her poetry, in her favorite genre, poetry, short story, novel, and she also produces essay. One of her best and widely read piece is a law art. This is actually an example of historical metafiction, another literary genre that emerged in the modern American literature. So, to mention on some of her piece, we have the Circle Game in 1966. The most recent one, we have the Oryx and the Crake in 2013 and the 10th in 2016. For her novels, we will be reading The Penelopiad of 2015. So we will can experience what is historical metafiction would be like. So allow me to read an excerpt of her book. The Penelopiad opens Penelope, quoting herself saying, "Now that I'm dead, I know everything." Penelope then goes on to say that his wish did not come true, at least not totally. Death, Penelope thinks, despite the knowledge it does bring, it is not worth the cost. She even says that she would rather not know some of the things she had learned. So, from the name, perhaps you already have um, can recall on a literary piece with this character named Penelope and Penelope. Penelope begins to describe the afterlife, stating that everyone arrives to the underworld in a sack full of words, words you've spoken, words you've never heard, words that have been said about you. Penelope notes that her own sack was full of words about her husband, and that some people say that her husband made a fool of her and got away with everything. Odysseus' account, Penelope's things, was always so plausible, and many people believe his account of things, while taking the mythology with a grain of salt. Penelope admits that even she believed him, often thinking that he would not lie to her since she was such a loyal wife. Okay, so another clue coming from a literary piece that were published prior to the Penelopiad, we have the name Odysseus. Okay, this is a form of allusion to, of course, a popular epic. We have Iliad and Odyssey. Bitterly, Penelope thinks that all she wanted amounted was a stick used to beat other women with, since all the storytellers considered her the model of the faithful wife. Penelope wanted to scream at other women and tell them not to be like her. Penelope admits that she always knew that Odysseus was tricky, but that was she pretended not to see the side of him. Instead, she kept her doubts to herself because she wanted happy endings. Now, though Penelope realized that lots of people were mocking her in secret. They told stories about her that Penelope calls scandalous gossip, but that she says will only make her seem guilty if she denies them. So, this is an example of historical metafiction of Margaret Atwood. entitled The Penelopiad. If you could notice, there are several allusion. That's gonna be the characters from Iliad and Odyssey, Penelope, Odysseus, and of course, what is realistic in that particular literary piece, Iliad and Odyssey in the epic, is also taken as a fact in this new literary piece. Moreover, there is an incorporation of a theory coming from the author, coming from Margaret Atwood. And what is that theory? The theory of afterlife and the theory about what Penelope was thinking or deep inside. What is Penelope's voice? Perhaps you could also check on the theme of feminism in Margaret Atwood's work here. So, once again, that is historical metafiction. We will be doing a little bit of a game to measure or to check our understanding on the North American literature. The first question here we have the significant form of literature that emerged in the revolutionary period of the American literature. So these are scrambled letters, or these are not really scrambled, but there are letters that are missing. So just simply fill in what is missing. And the answer to the first question is political literature. To continue, the American literary period when the earliest works of fiction were published, that is actually early national period. Okay. To continue, he wrote The Great Gatsby in 1925. Who wrote it? It's right, F. Scott Fitzgerald. He's the father of American literature. The answer is Mark Twain. To continue in our last question, the literary genre that first appeared during the Beat literary period. That's going to be confessional literature. So I hope you learned something about North American literature and the new literary genre, subject, and theme that emerged in the modern literary period. So we will now go to the southern part of America. That's going to be Latin American literature. Um, to give us a little bit about its characteristic, these characteristics were extracted and given from the reference Roberto Gonzalez Echevarria, a professor coming from Yale University. So, likewise, with the Northern American literature, Latin America is also divided into several centuries. Here, we will be dividing them into 14th, into New Worlds, followed by um, the different periods of Latin American literature. So here in the 14th to 17th century, here are the notable characteristics on language. Of course, it uses the language of the indigenous America, Spanish, Portuguese, Peruvian, but not limited to. Chilean, of course, can include that one. Genre and forms of the earlier literature is actually dubbed as the New World as a discovery of the European conquistador to the region. So we have here the earliest form of literature in Latin is actually oral, ideographs, and pictographs. So ideographic there as a representation of a representation of a idea. Then we also have pictographs using picture to represent an idea. Colonial genre, these are it. We have the romantic ballads. It is actually an eight-syllable lines. Once again, it is an influence coming from the European literature. Theater and all other oral forms of literature, such as Italian poetry, sonnets, and so on. So next we have in poetry, notable person representative of this region would be Francisco de Terraza. He wrote the sonnet in the Petrarchan style or Italian style of poetry. Another form of oral poetry in Latin America is epic. A notable person, a notable author or epic writer is Alonso de Ercilla y Zuniga of 1569 to 1889. 1589. He's actually dubbed as a master of eight-line octava stanza on writing epic poetry. Um, so here, another form of New Worlds literary genres, we have chronicles. It's Bartolome de las Casas, our representative author. He wrote a short account of the destruction of the Indies. Okay, next to 14th to 17th century, we have 18th to 19th century, and these are the notable literary pieces and authors. We have histogram, or a collection of history. This is also the same with an account, or a history, is a history log. Then next to that, we have a different kind, which is manifesto. This is a documentation of local law. The part of the one of the one of the beautiful things that happened in the 18th to 19th century is the adoption of Latin America to fiction, and these are incorporated into theater, drama, musical play as well. So next to the genre, we have novels. The most popular content of their novels in the 18th to 19th century were on educational reforms, reforms in the society, religion, as well as romanticism in nature. So down to the 20th century, these are our um, characteristics. We have here the vanguardia, or the avant-garde. This is the literature with an art and style following the modernism and surrealism. This is the literary movement wherein conventional conventional writing is broken into, or not being followed, and there are emergence of different genres such as free verse in poetry and blank verse as well in poetry. Notable representative author here, we have Pablo Neruda. He is actually a social activist. So, and he is actually using literary literature to express his criticism towards the social condition. Modern novel, we have realism. That would include Mexican Revolution. To be exact, we have Mariano Azuela, a representative author from the 20th century of Latin American literature. This is also a significant head turner on Latin America. That is their Latin American boom, or the boom novels. What is it? What is in here? This is actually literary production. They produce magical realism novels. Then there are prominent writers. Mostly of these literary movement are composed of men, or I would not say mostly, but all of the writers involved in this movement are men. So one of them, or the most notable of them, is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. For parents and teachers, I would encourage you to read on his books entitled 100 Years of Solitude. Another one, we also have literary piece, Love in a Time of Cholera. Post-boom literature, this is the rise of women writers. So this is actually perhaps a chance for women writers to express their side through literature, and it can be expressed and can be seen on the themes and subject that they usually use. That's going to be on gender and sexuality. Now we have young Latin women writers. We have Mirna Montero, Diana Shivano, and Zoe Valdez. So I'd like to invite everyone to read on them. Now, to give the overall characteristics of the 21st century Latin American literature, then we can take it from the boom literature to the modern Latin literature and to the present. It's gonna be free in form, not following the norms and the measures and the traditional literature or conventional literary elements. It is actually also inventive in form and in style. More of it in Latin America, it focuses on realism, magical realism, uh, is also another is also a genre that is also unique from boom literature, and this is where Latin America gained recognition or earned the spotlight in literature, revolutionized women writers and themes on gender and equality. Okay, so that's all about the Latin American literature. Now let's have a little bit of a review. What you're going to do is to arrange the letters to formulate your answer to this statement. So number one here we have these are the genre and form of earlier literature in Latin America. That's gonna be poetry and pictograph. Okay. Second, we have Alonso D. Ercila y Zuniga. He is actually the best known master of a particular genre in poetry. And what is it? That is epic poetry. Okay. Third would be the literary genres that emerged in the Latin American literature during the 17th to the 18th century. So there were several forms of literary piece that emerged during this time. And what are those? We'll see about that. We have histographs, we have manifesto, fiction, and novel. All right. Then I have here an example of a poem. Please help me identify what type of poem it is. So let me read it. For you, I'll hazard all. Why? What care I? For you, I'll live, and in your love, I'll die. So this time, I'll let us read together these lines, and let us try to count with our fingers on the meter of the poem. For you, I'll hazard all. Why, what care I? For you, I'll live, and in your love, I'll die. So, this is an example of what Latin American form or style of poetry. Yes, it's an iambic pentameter. That's gonna be a All right, that's going to be black poetry. My apologies on that. We have the last question, and he is the most notable literary person of the Latin American boom or the Latin American movement. He actually has a lot of contemporaries. Moreover, he is widely read because of the novels that have been mentioned earlier. Um, Love in a Time of Cholera is most popular for adult readers too. Then um, that's gonna be Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Okay, that's all about Latin American literature. Now, this time, allow me to end our session this afternoon by giving you suggestions on the texts. I have here Saji text portion. This is a part where I am going to suggest on what you can read, or I would like to suggest that you read. We have Malinche, written by Laura Esquivel. Judging by the name, she is an author coming from Latin America. Once again, do read Malinche. So, next to that, we also have um, The Apocalypse by Juno Diaz from Latin America. And, okay, that would be it. Most of my literary piece or the literary piece that I suggested were coming from these books that I use as a reference. It's actually 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. A first edition written by Mariki Tara Ochoco. Then I also have a Beyond Borders written by Maria Gabriela Martin, Alona Guevara, MR Every Del Campo, and Maria Socorro Q. Perez, the project writer of the book. So those are the things that I'd like to share to you this afternoon, the different genre and the uniqueness of genres of North American and Latin American. These are really influential literary piece because Asian writers like ourselves and other writers coming from all over the world are getting inspiration from these authors, not just in modern or contemporary writers from America, moreover, to the different literary periods of the region. So, once again, this is your tutor for this afternoon on the subject 21st Century Literature from the Philippines and the world. Thank you for your time this afternoon. This is your tutor, Tiny. Would like to invite you to be with us again next Tuesday. Just go to the DepEd Edtech Unit, DepEd Philippines, DepEd Tayo on Facebook, or you can also check on DepEd Edtech Unit, DepEd TV in YouTube. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETUlay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan bukas mula 1:00 ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETUlay free online tutorial session sa Filipino. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETUlay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!